Alex Rodriguez calls me up. He's coming to Toronto, Canada with Daymond John. They all want to go out for a steak dinner. I said the best in Canada is right here inside this castle. It's called Blueblood. We're having dinner here tonight.
It's like the only castle in North America, and then all of a sudden you can come out and have dinner in a castle. They're coming to Blueblood. It's the original cellar from the castle. It was buried during Prohibition. We just unearthed it and filled it with millions of dollars of wine.
So tonight, are we going to pull a bottle from this cellar for dinner?
I've got the best wine for a steak. Kevin O'Leary Cabernet Sauvignon is going to be fantastic.
The O'Leary Cabernet Sauvignon. Shameless promotion. I love this wine. A-Rod and Daymond are going to love it too. Wait till they taste this. When you get on Shark Tank, and Alex, you know this, you saw it happen, people get 10 million eyeballs. They got picked out of the morass. They're on the carpet. Whether they get a deal or not, 10 million people see them. Yeah. That's zero customer acquisition cost. That's cool. That's cool.
Free marketing, baby.
So?
And then they go to CNBC and they get watched by another 3 or 4 or 5 million.
Yeah,
people.
But however, I've noticed that the companies, after the Oprah effect, Shark Tank effect, they got to run a business. So what happens 2-3 years in when people forgot you were on Shark Tank?
So what you're talking about is the gold digger effect.
Yeah.
You come on, you don't want to do a deal, you give some crazy valuation, you don't close. Which one of you do I absolutely tear to pieces now on a $28 million valuation? You get the spike, but then you get nothing afterwards because you're not part of the ecosphere. If you get a deal, we start to watch what happens to you, right? That's the key. And that's the message I'm telling people every day now. Don't come on Shark Tank if you don't want to close. You get what I'm talking about. I think you guys are flying very close to the sun. Your valuation is the highest I've ever seen on the carpet. I'm not saying you can't pull it off, but it won't be with my money. I'm out. Close a deal, even if you don't like the valuation, get involved, and then we'll follow you forever. Then you get the real traction of what the show's worth. 10 years, baby. It's gone on for 10 years.
You know what I like? I like former athletes. Because former athletes, you can coach, they have thick skin, they understand, they have grit. A lot of these entrepreneurs, they're not tough enough. For me, the first time, there's a lot of complaining, there's a lot of this, and they're entitled. I don't want entitled people. When someone walks to the Yankee clubhouse, I either know if you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. Within 5 minutes, Kevin, if you walk in with that suit, I would say we can win a championship with Kevin or we cannot win one.
But I look spectacular tonight.
Especially with the black shirt.
But you know, I want to elaborate on this, right? People think that you were born in that suit, and I know that, you know, you grew up in a lot of third world countries dealing with it. People think the black guy's going to walk in break dancing and rapping, and the athlete should never be, you know, the athlete, whoever he is. But you were looking at business and finance way before you were an athlete, right? Mm-hmm. Explain how you were projecting and thinking like, you know what, I need to go into real estate. I need to educate myself in so many other areas. Explain the thought process.
Because you made the transition.
Yeah, you made the transition, which is
none
very
of you
hard.
None of you dudes do that.
You know, I grew up with a mother who grew up probably like you and probably like you. I mean, I didn't have a lot of resources growing up. She had 2 jobs. When I was 14 years old in Miami, it's unbelievable I was thinking this. I said, how the hell do I get to Palo Alto from Miami? Palo Alto, of course, where Stanford is. I realized 3 things. I needed to be a good baseball player, I needed to have a 1200 in my SAT, and I needed a 3.5 GPA.
Regardless of baseball.
Regardless of baseball. Right. But baseball helped, right? Because if not, it would have been a 14 or 1500 in my SAT. Every time that my mother said, we have to move, because the landlord kept saying, we never owned anything. We were very poor growing up. Mom said, we got to move again. Every 18 months, we would have to move because the landlord would raise the rents. I said to myself, boy, if I can ever trade places with the landlord.
And own it.
And own it.
Yeah.
Right? And the first shot I got, 22 years old, I bought my first duplex. And 13,000 apartments later, it's been the greatest business, better than baseball, I've ever been involved with. It's real estate, and it's cash flow. And every 8-10 years, you refinance your property, tax-free, and you buy some more. And you stay disciplined to that. You don't refinance it and go buy a plane, or refinance it and go buy a boat. You refinance it and go buy more apartments.
Another property.
And you put nice debt on it,
non-recourse. You know what I like it? Cash flow on cash flow.
I love the guy.
That's a dirty word, cash flow. And non-recourse debt.
Yes.
Non-recourse. Fannie Mae, baby. I love Fannie Mae. Thank you. Freddie Mac. David Brickman, thank you. You're amazing.
Kevin, when did you realize that there was a bigger story for you?
You know what I learned in life?
Because everybody thinks you were born probably, you know,
I had no
in money.
dough. I had no dough.
Okay.
You know, I got to tell you a crazy story. We're in a castle tonight, in this beautiful place, Blueblood. I tried to get married in that glass thing at the other end of this castle. Yeah. I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
30 years ago. I couldn't afford it. I had no dough. Right here, this is what's so magic to me. We're sitting around talking, having a steak, drinking great wine. It happened here. I realized, wow, I'm poor. I got no dough. And I started thinking about fear as a motivator. Fear of bombing out, like being broke forever.
When did you realize that you can make this thing big? Not just feeding yourself, make it big.
Rita Rabbit. Rita Rabbit's with you all the way. When mother starts saying, my 4-year-old kid has to learn how to read and you've got software to do it, and I went down to Walmart and they said, we're going to blow this up for you. We don't like your price. You're charging $49. We want to sell for $12. I said, gee, that's not what I was thinking. And they said, we'll sell millions because everybody wants to learn how to read. I said, okay, you guys are on. That was my moment. Everybody's got a moment. That was mine. And they blew it up huge.
My moment when I was standing on the street corner and I was like 1992 when I was selling hat by hat by hat. And I said, you know what, the world, it's right now, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon in New York and it's 2 o'clock at night in Japan. How can I make sure that everybody has this and is selling when I'm sleeping? And I remember saying that to myself, and I didn't know how I was going to accomplish that. But later on, 2 years later, I would find people to help me accomplish that. But I realized at that point, I had to get to somebody who could sell it at every store in the world, no matter what time it was.
And you did it, and in 2 years, you kicked ass.
Yeah. It felt like forever. It felt like 100 years. But the 2 years, it happened.
You're pro. You're a rock star. You're killing it. The world loves you. Like, you're just hitting home runs every day. See ya! When in your head do you say, uh-oh, I'm not 22 anymore, and I gotta plan the next gig? When does that happen?
Here's the data. I just believe.
But I want to know your moment, baby.
My moment was this.
Okay.
When I realized that in the major leagues, the average is 5.5 years. Career. 5.5 years.
You killed that.
I played 23 years. You make 95% of your money from age 20 to 30. And then less than 5% of our players, of 750 players, have a college degree. With that information alone, I was short the stock.
He's a data. He's a data person.
And
you're right.
I said at 28, I'm going to be out of a job.
He's short the stock. He's a data person.
I started investing in assets, put some debt on it, and realized that if I'm 22 and I do a 15-year mortgage on this nice apartment building, by the time I'm 37,
so you were
I'm
hip
going to
to
be
that
debt-free.
at that age, 22?
Yeah, I was
You were
scared.
going long at 22.
Yeah. I just realized that from one day you can go from the penthouse to the house, and I did not want that to happen to me. Because one knee injury, one ball hits you in the head like Dickie Thon for the Houstons, and you're done. You're out of baseball. And I think athletes, instead of being in the moment, which you should be, you should also think about 25 years from now, what's going to happen. I didn't want to be that athlete that when I was 45, 50 years old, said, hey, remember me, I used to hit home runs. That would always piss me off. Athletes have something that you know you have, and they have a competitive advantage over both of you. But they make sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars before the age of 30.
Yeah.
You imagine the
piss it
compounded
away.
interest.
They piss it away?
Well, they're not disciplined. You have to have the same discipline you have in the batting
Who
cage.
gave you discipline? Who told you don't spend that money?
Look, I came up watching people like Leon Black, Warren Buffett, Barry Sternlicht. These are the guys that I looked up to. On one hand, I looked up to Darryl Strawberry and Keith Hernandez and Don Mattingly and Cal Ripken. But on this hand, I looked up to people like yourself. I've seen all the work you've done, and then I read everything. And then with YouTube, you can just educate yourself, especially as a young athlete. You're so consumed with your sport. The only way you're going to be great and be Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and LeBron James is you better be focused.
He looked at his analytics at a younger age. I did the same thing, you know. When I looked at my drug dealer friends when I grew up in Hollis, Queens, and over the course of 5 years, After they spent time in jail and paid for attorneys, they were making the same amount of money that a kid worked at McDonald's would make over the course of 5 years. If you look at them being incarcerated for 2.5 years of that and attorneys.
So they never lifted some out of that. They
Yeah, and I said to myself, oh, I don't want to go to jail. I'm really cute. You know, it may be rough. I don't want to live in a cage. I looked at analytics. It sounded like he looked at analytics of, listen, we can all, you know, glorify what's happening, but the bottom line is what happens after baseball.
There's so many entrepreneurs that are good in one sense, but they don't know the numbers. If you don't know the numbers, you cannot win. And then you have to be able to articulate a story.
That is the language of business.
You have to articulate your
We
story.
see that on the Shark Tank all the time. You love the pitch, you love the story, and you ask them what's the gross margin, they don't know. I think I'm worth more than the average shark. I'm Mr. Wonderful.
I converse with a lot of rappers, and a lot of rappers don't have more than, let's say, 25 million in the bank, and they're flying private. I go, to operate a private plane is $5 million a year. That would be $60 million over 10 years. You'd have to make $100 million before taxes. You have $100 million. You have $100 million to operate a private plane. I understand if you got to go and pick up a check that's worth $200, you got to pay $30. You know, it happens no matter what level you're at. Keep it up with the Joneses.
Let's talk about what advice you'd give to a guy that's 19, a woman that's 20, that's starting out, without the bull. Like, what do you tell him he could reach back and say, here's what I know you don't know. I'm going to give you a free gift. I'm going to give you a piece of advice that I know is real. I'm going to help you.
Number one thing is pick something that you're extremely passionate about. Something that you would do for free. You absolutely have to love it, right? And then learn everything about it. Don't just learn like what's at first base. Learn what's second base, third base, what's a home run, what's a grand slam. Learn
Doesn't matter what your career is.
Be an expert and be really, really good at it. And then once you have that, understand what is your superpower. You may be a great sales lady. You may be a great salesman. Then find the numbers guy or numbers lady, right? Then come out and get someone like Daymond to come out and be your salesperson. Because at the end of the day, if we're not selling, we're dying.
I say that, man. You got to sell. Daymond?
Don't quit your day job, right? You know, I worked at Red Lobster for 5 years, making $30,000 a year, but I had medical. I used all my people at Red Lobster to help me push the brand out. I was taking home all the free food while I created FUBU. That was $150,000. I would have had to do $2 million in sales at FUBU to create the same $150,000. Don't quit your day job and put more and more time into that, but fail fast. And you know, real entrepreneurs, what they do, they act, they learn, and then they repeat. Don't overfund it. You don't go to Vegas and play a $1,000 blackjack hand. You go to Vegas and play a $1,001 blackjack hands until you finish it and figure it out.
My thing is, and I learned real early, you can't do it all yourself. You got a partner. I remember that moment I said, you know, I'm not going to make it because I'm not good at logistics. I can't build, manufacture, distribute stuff, but I'm a sales dude. And I can market like a banshee. I need a guy to help me with making it, distributing it, warehousing it, and selling it. I gave up half of my equity to a guy that could do that, and we exploded on the upside. I'm into like marriage in business, finding the partner
Strategic partners
to offset the weakness that you have.
Of course, you're right.
No dude's got everything.
You're right.
Like you just don't. And the pain, the suffering I had saying I'm giving up half my equity, a guy can to solve for my weakness, ended up being my greatest strength. Partners in marriage, in business, love, hate, interaction, crazy stuff, bouncing ideas, hearing what the other guy thinks, the other girl thinks. That's business. We just laid down some amazing tape. You know that?
I actually
That
learned
was
something. I
amazing.
hate to say it, but I learned
I'm
something.
just telling you what I think. Let's try this amazing O'Leary wine.
Oh, God.